I want to bring in an attorney for survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, Spencer Kuvin. Spencer, thank you for joining us. I want to read a statement from Epstein-Maxwell survivor Annie Farmer about Bondi's ouster. She says, "This is not about a single person. It's about a government and judicial system that's repeatedly failed Epstein survivors. Regardless of who holds power, survivors deserve accountability, transparency, protection from retaliation, and assurance that those who enabled Epstein, Maxwell, and others will be investigated and, if appropriate, prosecuted." So in the aftermath of Bondi being ousted, what are you hearing from your clients?
Thank you. And I couldn't have said it any better myself. Ms. Farmer, like all of my clients, have been through a lot. And ultimately, the measure of any justice system is how it treats its most vulnerable. And what we have seen from this administration is they really just didn't care at all about the vulnerable victims in this particular circumstance. Absolutely, Ms. Bondi should be required to testify about her actions. We've seen that she has repeatedly broken federal law with respect to the release of these documents, and she needs to answer for that, and she needs to answer under oath.
Look, they want her to testify still, and I'm going to talk to an oversight Democrat later in the show about how they might still try to compel her to do that. But even in instances where they've gotten Bondi in front of them on the Hill, she's been combative. She wouldn't directly answer Epstein-related questions. She wouldn't even look at the survivors when she testified before the House Judiciary Committee. And yet, I wonder if she were to testify behind closed doors with the Oversight Committee, if she were to actually answer questions and not obfuscate, what do you think the most valuable questions she could answer are?
I think at the end of the day, I think the most valuable question would focus on the documents themselves. And what I've always said in every interview that I've done on behalf of the victims is, are there videotapes, surveillance video from inside of Epstein's homes?
Yeah.
Does the government have possession of those videotapes? Because they have yet to answer those questions. They've released a lot of documents, but they have never released the videotapes. And I have seen with my own eyes through the inspection of Epstein's home here in Palm Beach that he had cameras located inside of his home.
And I think we've heard those allegations from survivors as well. You're right that that would be one of the things to try to push to get more information on. I think if we zoom out and look at this whole thing as a whole, I wonder if you would characterize the DOJ's handling of the Epstein case overall as a cover-up.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, Ms. Bondi has been very clear about where her allegiances lie. Her allegiance is not to the American public. It is not to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And frankly, it is not to victims throughout the United States. Her allegiance is to one man and one man only. And that is why, on behalf of the victims, we're glad that she's gone. And we hope that any replacement has an allegiance to the American people and not to one man.
We also know that, at least in the interim, her replacement is Todd Blanche. So let's focus on him because he's now the acting AG. But he's also the person who directly spoke with Ghislaine Maxwell in a highly unusual interview for a deputy attorney general to do. That interview resulted in moving Maxwell to a minimum security prison. And then in just the last few days, a twist of the bizarre. One of the women in there with Maxwell was Jen Shah from the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And she said that Maxwell told her she basically had no remorse. Still, Blanche suggested last night on Fox News that this should close the Epstein chapter. I want you to watch what he said and respond on the other side.
The Epstein files has been a saga that's lasted for the past year. So I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, should not be a part of anything going forward.
He's been trying to close the book on this, but given the ties and the actions that he's taken, isn't he a continuation of the Bondi era?
He absolutely is. I mean, he's the one that executed the sweetheart transfer deal for Ghislaine Maxwell. That deal was bought and paid for before she ever spoke to Todd Blanche. It was discussed what she was going to say, and it was probably told to her that if she keeps Trump's name out of her mouth, that she'll get a sweet transfer to a nice facility. And I don't doubt that at the end of the day, at the end of Trump's term, that he might commute her sentence. And that would be an absolute travesty of justice. Maxwell has no remorse whatsoever. I can tell you that in meeting with Epstein himself during depositions and mediations in the cases, Epstein had no remorse. He could have cared less about the victims. He saw them as commodities, and he was shocked that people were even upset about what he had done.
Spencer Kuvin, amid all the reaction we're getting to Bondi's ouster, I think the reaction and sentiment of your clients is paramount here. Thank you for coming on and speaking to it with us.
Thank you.